Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I want to tell you a story that changed the way I think about safety, privacy, and even the meaning of home. Most horror stories begin with something obviously frightening: a dark figure in a hallway, a mysterious phone call, or a haunted house. This story doesn't begin that way. It begins with a sound. A small, insignificant sound. A sound that almost everyone would ignore. And that is exactly why it became so terrifying. Because sometimes the scariest things in life don't announce themselves. They hide, they wait, and they slowly become part of your everyday life until it's too late to realize what is really happening. This happened to me 6 years ago. At the time, I was 28 years old and had just bought my first house. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't even particularly beautiful, but it was mine. After years of renting apartments and sharing walls with noisy neighbors, owning a house felt like freedom. The property was located about 20 minutes outside a small town. The nearest neighbor lived almost half a mile away. The area was peaceful, quiet, almost too quiet. The house had been built in the early 1950s and showed its age. The floorboards creaked. The windows rattled during storms. The plumbing...
Or maybe mice. Old houses often have them. I didn't think much about it. The following night, I heard it again. This time, it lasted longer. A slow, scratching sound moving from one side of the room to the other. Still, I wasn't worried. I bought several traps and placed them around the property. A week passed. No rats, no mice, nothing. Yet the noises continued. Sometimes during the day, mostly at night, always beneath the floor. At first, the sounds were merely annoying. Eventually, they became unsettling. One evening, while reading on the couch, I heard something that made me put my book down. 3 knocks directly beneath me. Knock, knock, knock. Not scratching, not random movement. 3 distinct knocks. Almost as if someone had deliberately hit the underside of the floor. I sat frozen, waiting, listening. Several seconds passed. Then silence. I remember telling myself there had to be a logical explanation. Wood expands, pipes move, old houses make strange noises. But deep down, I knew those knocks sounded intentional. Over the next several weeks, the noises grew more frequent. I started noticing them at predictable times, usually after midnight, usually when the house was completely silent. Sometimes I would wake up and hear movement beneath my bedroom. Slow movement, careful movement, the kind of movement that suggested intelligence. But nothing else was missing. No electronics, no money, no valuables. Only food. That made no sense. I checked every door, every window, every lock. Everything was secure. Weeks passed. Then something happened that terrified me. I came home from work one evening and found a kitchen cabinet open. Wide open. I specifically remembered closing it that morning. Perhaps I forgot. But the feeling I had when I saw it was impossible to explain. A feeling that someone had been inside my house. Watching, waiting, touching things. I searched every room. Nothing. Nobody. Still, the feeling remained. The following weekend, I installed security cameras. One facing the front door, one facing the back door, one in the living room, one in the kitchen. For the first few days, nothing unusual appeared. Then I noticed something strange. Every night around 2 a.m.,
one of the indoor cameras would briefly lose signal, only for a few seconds. Then it would reconnect. At first, I assumed it was a technical issue, but the timing bothered me. Always around the same time. Always during the middle of the night. I contacted the manufacturer. They found no problems. The cameras were functioning normally. That answer made me even more uncomfortable. One rainy Saturday afternoon, I was cleaning beneath the kitchen cabinets when I discovered something unexpected. A candy wrapper. I didn't recognize the brand. I certainly hadn't purchased it. Curious, I reached farther underneath. Then I found another wrapper, and another, and another. Soon I had collected nearly a dozen wrappers hidden beneath the cabinet.
Then stopped. I sat upright in bed, unable to move. My heart hammered against my chest. Every instinct screamed that I should leave the house immediately. Instead, I stayed frozen until sunrise. The next day, I called the police. An officer arrived and listened carefully as I explained everything. The noises, the missing food, the wrappers, the footsteps. The officer searched the property. He checked doors and windows, inspected the basement access, examined the crawl space entrance. Nothing. No evidence, no signs of forced entry, no suspects. Before leaving, he recommended upgrading my security system. Then, he drove away. I felt more alone than ever, because now I knew I wasn't imagining things, but nobody could explain them. Days turned into weeks. The atmosphere inside the house changed. Every room felt different. Every shadow felt threatening. The silence itself became frightening. Then came the note. The note changed everything. It happened on a Tuesday morning. I walked into the kitchen and saw a folded piece of paper sitting on the counter. At first, I thought it was junk mail. Then I remembered something. I lived alone. No one should have been inside. Slowly, I picked it up. My hands were trembling. I unfolded it. Inside were 5 words. I know when you sleep. Nothing else. No signature. No explanation. No threat. Someone had entered my home. Someone had watched me sleep. Someone wanted me to know it. I called the police immediately. This time, multiple officers responded. They searched every room, every closet, the attic, storage areas, everything. Again, they found nothing. No intruder, no evidence, no fingerprints, no explanation. One officer suggested that perhaps someone had entered through an unlocked door, but I knew better. I checked those locks obsessively. The doors had been locked. The windows had been locked. Yet somehow, someone had entered anyway. For the next several days, I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. Every creak sent adrenaline through my body. Then one evening, I decided to investigate the crawl space myself. I had avoided it for months. Now, I needed answers. The entrance was located behind the house, a small wooden hatch near the foundation. I grabbed a flashlight, a pocket knife, and every ounce of courage I possessed. The moment I opened the hatch, a terrible smell drifted upward. Rotting food, damp earth, human odor. My stomach tightened. I shined the flashlight inside. The crawl space extended beneath most of the house. Dark, narrow, silent. I crawled forward. The dirt beneath me was soft and uneven. The farther I moved, the stronger the smell became. Then my flashlight illuminated something unexpected. blankets, a backpack. My blood ran cold. Someone was living there. Someone had built a shelter beneath my house. The realization was almost impossible to process. For months, I had heard noises beneath my floor. For months, food had disappeared. For months, someone had been watching me. And now, I knew why. But the worst discovery was still ahead. As I crawled deeper into the darkness, I found a small area arranged like a bedroom. Blankets covered the ground. Food wrappers were stacked in piles. There were candles, batteries, clothing. Whoever lived here had been staying for a very long time. Then, I found notebooks, several notebooks. Curious, I opened one. What I saw nearly made me vomit. Every page contained information about me, my work schedule, my daily routine, what time I left the house, what time I returned, what groceries I bought, what television programs I watched, phone conversations, personal details, everything. Someone had been documenting my life, page after page, week after week, month after month. I suddenly became aware of something horrifying. If this person lived here, where were they now? The crawl space became impossibly silent. I slowly looked around. Then, I heard breathing. Very close. Not behind a wall. Not far away. Eyes wide, unblinking, watching. Then the figure disappeared into darkness. I screamed, I dropped the notebook, and I crawled faster than I have ever moved in my life. I slammed into support beams, hit my head, scraped my arms. None of it mattered. I just wanted out. Seconds later, I burst through the hatch and ran toward the house. I locked every door, called emergency services, and waited. Within minutes, police vehicles arrived. Officers surrounded the property. They entered the crawl space. The search lasted nearly an hour. Eventually, they found him. A man in his 40s, thin, malnourished, covered in dirt, living beneath my house. Police later determined he had likely been there for at least 7 months, possibly longer. He had discovered a hidden opening beneath the property and gradually transformed the crawl space into a secret living area. He entered the house when I was away, took food, observed my routines, listened through gaps in the floorboards, and apparently spent countless hours watching me. The notebooks filled multiple evidence boxes. Investigators were shocked by the level of detail. One detective later told me it was among the strangest cases he had ever seen. The man suffered from severe psychological issues. He rarely spoke during questioning. When asked why he chose my house, his answer was chilling. He simply said, he felt safe. Safe. That word haunted me.
Because while he felt safe beneath my house, I had been living above him in complete ignorance. After the arrest, I attempted to return to normal life, but normal no longer existed. Every room reminded me of what happened. Every floorboard made me wonder what lay beneath me. I stopped sleeping properly. I checked locks repeatedly. I installed additional cameras, motion sensors, alarms. Nothing helped. Eventually, I sold the house. Even taking a financial loss felt worth it. I needed distance. I needed peace. I needed to know that when I slept, nobody was hidden beneath me. Years have passed since then. Most people who hear this story ask the same question. What was the scariest part? Was it finding the shelter? Seeing the face? Reading the notebooks? No. The scariest part was understanding how close he had always been. Every night, every morning, every ordinary moment, just a few feet below me. Listening, watching, learning, and I never knew. That realization changed me forever. Because we assume our homes are private. We assume locked doors keep danger outside.
We assume that if someone were watching us, we would notice. But sometimes we don't. Sometimes the danger isn't outside. Sometimes it's already there, hidden in the darkness, waiting beneath your feet. So tonight, when you go home and the house becomes quiet and everyone else is asleep, and you hear a strange noise beneath the floorboards, don't be too quick to assume it's just rats. Because that is exactly what I thought. And I was terribly, horribly wrong.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more terrifying true horror stories, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Tell us in the comments, what would you do if you discovered someone was secretly living under your house?